November 2nd, 2014, from Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football in prime time. The Steelers won the toss and they elected to defer, so the Ravens would get the ball first. They start off in their own 20. They got the ball to midfield and into Pittsburgh territory, but their drive stalled on the 42 and they would punt the ball. So now Pittsburgh would get the ball with about 11 minutes left in the first. They were pinned against their own end zone on their own 8-yard line, and they would go 3 and out on their first possession. So now Baltimore would get the ball back with less than 10 minutes left in the first quarter. They had it on the Pittsburgh 35, and on first down, Joe Flacco hit Torrey Smith for a 35-yard touchdown to put the Ravens in the lead 7-0 as they put the first points on the scoreboard. So now Pittsburgh would take over on their own 20, and they would go 3 and out for their second consecutive possession in this game. The Ravens would then go 3 and out, and so they punted the ball back to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh went 3 and out. As on their first 3 possessions, they would go 3 and out and punt the ball. So now the Ravens would take over, and after 5 plays, they would punt the ball, as it was all defense at this point in the first quarter. And now with about 3 minutes left in the first, Pittsburgh took over on their own 3-yard line. They would end up picking up a first down on 2nd and 8 from the 5 when Roethlisberger hit Antonio Brown for a 13-yard pass to bring it out to the 18. LeGarrette Blount then ran for 9 yards and then 4 yards to bring it out to the 31. Then Roethlisberger hit Antonio Brown for a 6-yard pass as the first quarter came to a close with the score Baltimore 7, Pittsburgh 0. So the second quarter opened up with the Steelers on their own 37. And they would end up getting the ball to the 41, but then they started going backwards. And they ended up with 3 sacks in a row. On 1st and 20 from the 31 after a penalty, they ended up with Roethlisberger getting sacked by Canty and Elam. Then on 2nd and 26 from the 25, Roethlisberger was sacked for a 7-yard loss by Hatoli Nada. And then on 3rd and 33 from the 18, Roethlisberger was sacked for a 6-yard loss by Elvis Dumerville. So now the Steelers would punt the ball on 4th and 39 from the 12. So now the Ravens would take over on their own 30 with about 11 and a half minutes left in the half. They would get the ball out to the 49, and on 2nd and 5, Taliaferro fumbled the ball, and McCain recovered. Moats forced the fumble. So now the Steelers had the ball on the Baltimore 27 with about 9 minutes left in the second quarter. They ended up getting down to the 5-yard line, and on 3rd and goal from the 5, Roethlisberger hit Le'Veon Bell for a 5-yard touchdown pass, and it was now tied up at 7 apiece. So now the Ravens would take over on their own 37 after a 16-yard return on the kickoff. And then on 1st and 10 from the Pittsburgh 48, Flacco dropped back to pass, and he was intercepted by Worldless. And so the Steelers would take over on their own 30. And then just 3 plays later, on the Baltimore 19, Roethlisberger dropped back to pass, and he hit Martavis Bryant for a 19-yard touchdown pass to give the Steelers the lead with the score 14-7, Pittsburgh over Baltimore. So now the Ravens would take over on their own 23, and they brought the ball up towards midfield. And on 1st and 10 from the Baltimore 46, Flacco hit Forsett, and he went 24 yards on the pass. And so now it's a first down on the Pittsburgh 30, but they wouldn't get much further as Tucker would come out to kick a 46-yard field goal, and it was now 14-10 as they cut the Steelers' lead to just 4 points. So now the Steelers would take over with less than 2 minutes left before halftime. They had the ball on their own 20, and they ended up with a 3rd and 6 on their own 41, and Roethlisberger hit Le'Veon Bell, who picked up a first down with a 12-yard reception. So now it's first down on the 47 of Baltimore, and then Roethlisberger found Markus Wheaton for a 47-yard touchdown pass, and then with the 2-point conversion, it ended up being 22-10 Pittsburgh. So now the Ravens would get the ball with about a minute left, but they wouldn't get anything going, and this game went to halftime. So at halftime, the score was Pittsburgh 22, Baltimore 10. And at halftime, the Steelers retired Mean Joe Green's jersey, number 75. They put him in the Ring of Honor in the Steeler Hall of Fame. And so now in the third quarter, to start things off, the Steelers would have the ball, and they would end up punting on their first possession of the second half after 5 plays. So now the Ravens took over with about 12.5 minutes left in the third quarter, and they would end up bringing the ball into Pittsburgh territory. But then on 3rd and 3, they ended up getting sacked as Flacco was sacked by James Harrison for a 9-yard loss. And so now they would punt the ball, and the Steelers would take over with about 8 minutes left in the third. They had the ball on their own 14, and LeGarrette Blount ran for a 6-yard run, and then an unnecessary roughness call against the Ravens as things started to get a little bit out of hand, as these two teams were very physical, and then they were going at it like they were going to fight. The refs were trying to break it up. It was just pandemonium. Everybody was going crazy, but it was a first down now for Pittsburgh on the 35. They ended up getting dropped for a loss on the next play as Blount lost 7 yards. And then it was 2nd and 17 from the 28. Roethlisberger then found Antonio Brown for a 9-yard pass. And then Dumervil got called for an unnecessary roughness call, as things were just getting really physical and the penalty flags were flying. So now it was a first down for the Steelers on the Baltimore 48. Then a few plays later, though, they would end up punting the ball as their drive now stalled, and the Ravens would take over on their own 20 with about 5.5 minutes left in the third. They would move the ball up to about the 43, and they would end up punting as well after 5 plays. So now the Steelers would take back over with about 2.5 minutes left in the third quarter. They had the ball on their own 15. Roethlisberger hit Wheaton for a 15-yard pass to bring it out to the 30. Then a penalty brought them backwards. And then on 3rd and 5 from the Pittsburgh 35, Roethlisberger dropped back to pass, and he hit Le'Veon Bell on a little short pass, and Le'Veon Bell took it for the first down as he picked up 10 yards. And the third quarter came to a close with the score Pittsburgh 22, Baltimore 10. So now the fourth quarter opened up with the Steelers on their own 45, and they got a penalty on the first play of the first play of the fourth quarter. And then on 3rd and 13, another penalty, but this time against the Ravens, as a neutral zone infraction against Elvis Dumervil made it 3rd and 9 from the 46. Roethlisberger dropped back to pass, and he hit Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown made some nice moves, and next thing you know, he's in the end zone for a 54-yard touchdown, and it was now 29-10 Steelers over the Ravens. So now on the kickoff, Jacoby Jones would take it 108 yards all the way the length of the field from the back of the end zone, going all the way 108 yards to score the touchdown, and it was now 29-17 as the Ravens cut the lead back to 12. Now the Steelers would get the ball with about 14 minutes left in the game. They had it on their own 29. They then moved across midfield and into the Ravens' territory and into the red zone. It was 3rd and 9 for the Baltimore 18. Roethlisberger dropped back to pass, and he hit Martavis Bryant for an 18-yard touchdown pass, and was now 36-17 Pittsburgh over Baltimore. The Ravens now get the ball on their own 24 with about 9.5 minutes left in this game, but after 4 plays, they would end up punting the ball back to Pittsburgh. So now the Steelers took over with about 7 minutes left in the game. They had it on their own 25, but then on 3rd and 1, Roethlisberger fumbled the ball, and the Ravens recovered. So now the Ravens had the ball on the Pittsburgh 33 with about 5.5 minutes left in the game. They would get all the way up to the 1-yard line on first down, 1st and goal. Crockett Gillmore caught a pass from Joe Flacco for the touchdown. They went for 2. It was not successful, and so now the score was 36-23 Pittsburgh over Baltimore. So now the Steelers would get the ball with about 3 minutes left on the clock. They had it on the 41 after an onside kick failed by the Ravens, and so now they would end up edging the ball into the 30s as they got to the 33, and on 4th and 2, they decided to go for it, and Roethlisberger hit Spaeth for a 33-yard touchdown pass, and that made it 43-23. So now the Ravens would take over with less than 2 minutes left in this game, and the ball was on the 20, and they would end up getting across midfield and bringing it into field goal range, but the time ran out and the game came to a close with a final score 43-23 Pittsburgh over Baltimore. And in this game, Ben Roethlisberger made some history. He had 6 touchdown passes. He had 6 touchdown passes in his last game last week, and that makes history as he's the first quarterback to have 12 touchdowns in 2 games. And the previous record was 11. It was Tom Flores. He did it with the Oakland Raiders back in '63 in the AFL, and Tom Brady did it back in 2007 as, of course, a New England Patriot that was against the Miami Dolphins in Miami back in Week 7 of 2007, as the Patriots won that game 49-28. But in those consecutive weeks, Brady, the week before that, he had the 5 touchdowns against Dallas in Dallas, where they won 48-27. But here, Roethlisberger in 2014, in consecutive weeks, throws 6 touchdown passes. And the only other player to have 2 6-touchdown pass games in the same season is Y.A. Tittle. So Ben Roethlisberger in some elite company with this record-setting performance. And in this game, he didn't just have 6 touchdowns, he also had 340 yards. He was 25 for 37. Joe Flacco was 30 for 45 with 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. The leading rusher in the game was Justin Forsett with just 38 yards off of 9 carries. LeGarrette Blount had 23 yards off 10 carries. Le'Veon Bell had 20 yards off of 10 carries. He also had 38 yards off of 5 receptions. The leading receiver was Antonio Brown with 11 receptions for 144 yards and a touchdown. So this game was just all about passing. Forsett, by the way, also had 67 receiving yards off of 5 receptions. And he was the leading receiver for the Ravens. In this game, the leading tackler was Lawrence Timmons of the Steelers. He had 11 tackles. He had 1 sack. James Harrison had 7 tackles and 2 sacks. Moats had 1 sack, as the Steelers had 4 sacks altogether. Arthur Moats also had 3 tackles to go along with the sack. The Ravens had 3 sacks as well, as Elvis Dumervil and Hatoli Nada each had a sack, and Canty and Elam combined for a sack, and Smith and Mosley both had 9 tackles. Worlds had the game's only interception. And so Ben Roethlisberger puts up huge numbers as he makes history, and the Steelers win at home, and they now improve to 6-3, and they're 4-1 in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field. The Ravens are now 5-4 on the season. They fall to 2-3 on the road. So the final score: Pittsburgh 43, Baltimore 23.